All right, well, it's time to talk about broody hens a little bit, or broody chickens, using broody chickens, however you want to, whatever you want to call that. And essentially at this point, we're obviously well past the laying eggs, incubation, and the hatch, and well into the grow out. And one thing we wanted to talk about is just the hens and some of the beneficial aspects of the hen looking after the chicks during that grow out period, and how that can actually, if nothing else, make things a lot easier and avoid some, I'm going to say, common issues that sometimes happen with chicks. Well, these chicks here are about 3 weeks old, and this is the pair that brooded together, cooperative parenting, and basically they're doing amazing. You can kind of see, just as we're sort of filming them here, the hens tend to do a lot of talking to them and kind of letting them know, similar to like how roosters let hens know, hey, there's food over here, this, that, and whatever. And essentially the one thing that we noticed, or have noticed over the years, is these birds that are raised with the hen, they tend to learn faster than birds that are in brooders. Essentially my thought on it, so take this for what it's worth, is the birds in the brooders, without the hen, kind of make up their own rules, which is an amazing piece about chickens, that they can figure out feeding themselves and watering themselves and all those other various things about being a chicken, kind of without any guidance. I mean, we say this time and time again, they just seem to be better adjusted overall. And we do feel that they do learn some social skills with each other, but also with other birds as they get older, and integrating flock members, even if they're not related, can sometimes be easier. The other pluses, or the other big pluses here to the broody hens, are essentially you don't need anything fancy. As we sort of said in the last video, you need a space for her, but those chicks, which if they didn't have the hen would have been a little bit delicate, i.e. require like specific temperatures and this, that, and whatever, none of that's an issue, because essentially the hen provides all of it for them. So you can have some pretty cool nasty weather, i.e. like our birds that were born last November and grew up over the winter months. You can have some pretty cool temperatures, and that hen is essentially taking control of all of those variables that you'd have to worry about. So, you know, things, it could be as simple as when you take birds from a brooder and move them outside. Oftentimes we do hear of people who have trouble with that, because the birds are adjusting from being inside in a more or less climate controlled area to outside, and then they're having to relearn foraging and all those other things. These birds, for instance, they kind of come ready to do all of that, because they're very attentive to what the mom is telling them, or the hen is telling them, and really pick it up fast. Definitely a huge plus on a small scale, because we will say again, it's not something that is necessarily scale upable, i.e. you can't scale it up to the point that you could be raising hundreds or thousands of hens this way. But for a homestead, or small flock, or small garden flock, etc., where you're trying to breed your own replacements and whatnot, this is, in our opinion, a fantastic approach. So here is the same group of chicks at about 7 weeks of age, and as you can see, they're quite a bit bigger. They're well feathered and starting to get a few adult feathers, and you can really tell the difference between hens and roosters now. And the mums, this is the pair that brooded together, are still with them. You can see one of them right here, but they're kind of getting to that point where they're not as tentative, they're not as interested. And occasionally they will chase them over food. And although it's not exactly the same, this is almost like weaning age in mammals. You find the chanticleers get to a point where they've just had enough. And that's all right, because by the time they get to that point, the chicks are basically sort of fully self-sufficient. I mean, you can see they still listen to her, and they still follow her around the yard and that sort of thing, but she's not providing the same care at 7 weeks that she was at 3 weeks or before. But we do find, and we say this all the time, the the birds are better adjusted, i.e. the chicks seem to fight less, / they know how to settle disputes better, let's maybe put it that way. And it's really interesting, we're going to show you as these ones venture out into the main yard, the interactions between them and some of the other chicks we have. Here's an older group of chicks that are also out in the back behind the barn. And I forget exactly how old these ones are. But something that's quite interesting at this age, because obviously the roosters haven't started to really act roosterish, for lack of a better term, they mix fairly well with each other. And because we have different buildings, like here's the one coop right here, which I think is the one that these guys are from, it's fairly easy to keep track of everyone because everybody goes back to their proper building at night. So even though there's a lot of mixing out here in the yard right now of different ages and different clutches from different lines, they're pretty diligent about going back to the right coop, which we're kind of getting to that point. We should be marking some of these birds, and we'll come back out in the evening and do that, go around coop to coop and mark them so that we can keep track. Well, I guess that's kind of our discussion on the hens and the care they provide to the chicks and whatnot as they age and mature. Like we say, usually around that 7-week mark, maybe 8 weeks. Very similar to mammals, not an exact science, but the hens start to tire of them, and some hens will let you know that they don't want the chicks anymore, but usually by the time the hens tire of them, as we kind of showed here, the chicks are basically self-sufficient. They've learned most of those life skills to be able to find food, solve disputes with each other without resorting to flat-out violence, and yeah, they've picked up a lot of those foraging skills, and that probably is a huge, if you're raising chickens on a small scale, that's a huge factor, is successive generations of birds raised with broody hens. It changes the dynamics of your flock in that they usually end up being better foragers, better at finding food sources, better adjusted when they're older. This is just some anecdotal things that we've noticed over time. So as we always say, definitely we feel giving broody hens a try and trying to put them to work on your farm, homestead, whatever, is an excellent thing to do to be a little more sustainable, i.e. no need for incubators, no need for brooders, no need for really specialized housing, because at the end of it you end up with little fluff balls that are basically indestructible and tend to learn all those finer details of being a chicken from their mom. So anyways, on that note, we'll leave that there and stay tuned for more chicken videos.